Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Small businesses in BC say the end of the de minimis tariff exemption will have a major impact on them. At midnight, the U.S. will suspend an exemption on importing packages under $800. So tomorrow, new duties will kick in. So let us know, how will the end of this exemption affect you? Plus, layoffs at BC colleges and universities. We'll hear from faculty and students, and call in and let us know if these layoffs are affecting you this coming school year. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio, CBC Television, live streaming as well. And you can call us now on our top story. What will the end of the U.S. Tariff exemption, the de minimis tariff exemption, mean for you? How will duties on shipments under $800 affect you if you're a business person, a retailer shipping to the United States? Or if you are joining us from the U.S., watching or listening, let us know what that means to you as a consumer. You can just email us, bctoday@cbc.ca, or comment on our TikTok Live. On the phone, you can hit pound 690, dial 1-800-825-5950 or 604-669-3733. It is yet another crossroad for Canadian businesses amid the trade war with the United States. Starting tomorrow, the U.S. will put an end to an exemption that had allowed Canadian retailers to ship products to the U.S. to its consumers duty-free. It's called the de minimis exemption, and it allows goods under $800 to enter without duties. It's been in place for nearly a century, with the threshold increasing to $800 under President Obama. But U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order last month to remove it. For the owner of the Neighbor Shop, Sagar Delauri, this led to making a hard decision, discontinuing shipment of their products to the States, at least temporarily.
You know, we don't want a situation where we get a bunch of orders in the next week and someone's responsible of paying duties and we lose that customer, because a lot of our business is based off of repeat customers. So we just felt like we had to do this, at least just to figure things out and hopefully research what other people are doing in the same situation as us, and maybe kind of pick and choose what makes sense for our business based off of that. But yeah, it's been kind of, you know, people frustrated that we can't ship to them, but also people who are happy that, you know, we're trying to figure things out.
Okay, we're taking your calls. How will the end of the de minimis tariff exemption affect you? What should Canada do about it amid the trade negotiations with the U.S.? If you are a small retailer shipping to the United States, if you sell your goods on Etsy or on Amazon, we'd love to hear from you. What will this mean for you? And if you're a consumer in the United States, joining us here on the program, we'd like to hear from you as well. Just call us, hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or dial 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also send an email to bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Business groups, including the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce, are calling on the federal government to fight the change. Joining us now to speak for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business is Ryan Mitton, the Director of Legislative Affairs in BC for the CFIB. Good afternoon, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having CFIB on the show.
Well, what impact do you think the removal of this exemption will mean for your members?
Well, we've surveyed our members regularly, and almost half of BC small businesses say that they will be impacted by the removal of the de minimis exemption. And the impacts could be far more wide-reaching than what we're expecting. One of my concerns is that people may not know this is coming. We've seen some awareness, but it's going to be pretty broadly impactful. It could almost impact all of the online orders for small businesses that you see out there.
Do we know what kinds of duties they may be facing? How much are they expecting to pay?
Well, I've heard from one sports goods exchange store, for example, and they resell hockey sticks and memorabilia. In some cases, they'll cut hockey sticks into custom furniture or home goods, and they're expecting the price of a hockey stick to go up 20 to 30%. So That's significant, and it's going to make it hard to compete with other businesses. And so that's just an example of some of the negative impacts we're seeing out there.
And beyond the duties themselves, what will this mean for paperwork? What are they actually trying to figure out right now?
Well, I'm glad you brought up paperwork because we are going to see a lot of it. If you're not able to claim the de minimis exemption on your small business exports, then you're going to have to try and file for CUSMA, which is going to be the paperwork that gets your business into the States tariff-free. But that comes with its own costs. There's going to be forms to fill out. There's still going to be customs delays, shipping delays, and this really could snarl our supply chain. So that concerns me about how small businesses, fewer resources, and frankly, fewer lawyers are going to be able to handle this.
Okay, we're taking your calls as well. Ryan Mitton joins me from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and businesses are concerned about the end of the de minimis tariff exemption that kicks in at midnight tonight. And the argument from the U.S. is that, from Donald Trump, is that it has been a loophole and it is swiping U.S.-based businesses. We want to hear from you. What does this mean for you if you're a BC business that does ship on Etsy or another online retailer? What will this mean for you? What are you dealing with right now? If you're joining us from the States, we'd love to hear from you as well. Our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. And our TikTok live is up as well, taking your comments there. Dan is calling us from Vancouver. What are your thoughts on the end of this tariff exemption, Dan?
Well, I think the end is going to affect many people. There's no question about it. As a small business owner and an online marketing distribution company I have, I don't want to focus on what the challenges are. I think what we need to do as Canadians is focus on why we've got ourselves into this situation, because it wasn't there some time ago, but we've taken our eye off the reason why, and that's the government that's currently in place has not negotiated correctly with the U.S. government. Quite frankly, with anybody, he's not been negotiating in the interest of small business to be able to help them grow. And with a failing negotiator, we're going to be at the whim of who is the best negotiator. And we're experiencing it right now, and it's at the expense of small businesses. Quite frankly, almost every business will be impacted by the lack of ability, leadership, and true direction of what Canadians want. That's free trade with Americans, particularly our biggest neighbor. I've had business dealings with the U.S. for years and years and years and enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. But, I mean, we have to be able to understand what we have to be able to negotiate in strength. And our leadership does not understand. When you do not back your own country's resources and minerals and assets that we have, you're going to come across as weak and you're going to be taken advantage of. And this is crystal clear. And it's going to be an unfortunate situation for very, very many people. That's my point anyway.
Yeah, the bigger issue of how the trade negotiations are going. Dan, thank you very much for your comment on that. And we actually also have a comment here, a statement from the Surrey Board of Trade, Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade, and what they would like to see from the federal and provincial governments as well is to, one, provide clarity and guidance to exporters and carriers, as well as support small businesses and advocate for transitional arrangements or mutual recognition to ease the shock and ensure continued market access, strengthen local supply networks as well. And meanwhile, the Langley Chamber of Commerce says it wants the Canadian government to fight on behalf of small businesses as the U.S. and moves to eliminate these de minimis tariff exemptions. Okay, well, Ryan, what is it that the CFIB would like to see from the federal government? Have you even heard of this particular aspect of the trade relationship when we've been talking about the negotiations over these recent months?
Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the things that CFIB is calling for is that the Canadian government has collected a significant amount of money in counter tariffs against US products. And those are ultimately paid for by Canadian businesses, Canadian goods that are importing them in. And what we would like to see is for that money to be returned back to small and medium enterprises to actually reinvest in their business operations and pay their workers more. One of the things we know from our survey data is that the number one thing BC small businesses would do with tax relief or financial relief is increase employees' wages. They're competing to train, hire, and upskill workers, and that's one of the hard costs to deal with right now. So that would be a huge benefit to small businesses and something we're calling for. And since you mentioned negotiations, we like to say, obviously, the worst outcome for Canada right now would be a bad deal. But the second worst outcome is the uncertainty that small businesses are facing. And that's something we need to do. We need to address. Returning counter tariff revenue is one step, but also looking provincially, we need to examine some of the fundamental business conditions we have here. That includes our high cost of doing business, tax rates, and the ability for businesses to compete with Canada and the other parts of the United States.
You just quickly mentioned the returning counter tariffs, so the removal of some of those retaliatory tariffs. You see that as a good thing?
Yeah, when we did see the removal of some of the retaliatory tariffs, it was relief for some small businesses where they are importing products from the United States. We obviously have interconnected supply chains. To give you an example, I've heard of an agribusiness that exports their material to a cat and dog food producer down in the United States. That comes back across the border to then be sold on retail. It gets tariffed both ways, right? So it's just stacking costs on costs, and that benefits nobody. Obviously, many tariffs still remain, whether it's steel and aluminum tariffs, counter tariffs, and so on and so forth. But this initial sort of sticking to the knitting when it comes to CUSMA compliant goods is a relief for small businesses and a playbook to sort of retain that agreement and still have some success and predictability for small businesses to run their operations.
I'm going to go to Alan and Victoria in a moment here, but from the our caller's perspective, is there enough strength? Is Canada showing enough strength in these negotiations?
Well, when we talk to small businesses, really what the strength they want to see is strength and confidence in their operations. They're the ones that need support right now. And frankly, that's something I'm concerned that we haven't shown enough is investing in what makes us strong. Small businesses are 98% of all businesses in British Columbia. And so they account for the broad bulk of our economic activity here. It's critically important that we make sure we show strength by investing in the people that grow our economy.
Okay, let's take our call here. And again, you can let us know, how will the removal of the de minimis tariff exemption affect you? And what should Canada do in light of this change? How should it respond? Give us a call. It's hit pound 690 on your cell phone or dial 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. And as well, you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Alan in Victoria. Hi, how will this affect you, Alan?
Yeah, hi. I'm a small business owner who ships specialty trailer part to the States. Most of our customers, probably 85% of our customers, are U.S. customers. And obviously, most of our shipments have been going through Canada Post, U.S. Post right now with no duties or tariffs charged as a result of the low value, I should say low cost of our product. So we've been under that limit. Now that limit's been removed, we'll be required to pay ahead of time, obviously, which we can do and pass that cost on to our customer. But the two programs, the application that you have to fill out in order to prepay your duties, if I'll give you an example, our product costs 60 cents per unit. But on the Canada Post app, when you go to declare the value of the goods that are going across the border, there's a minimum. You can't put 60 cents in. You have to put $1 in. So just because it won't, the customs app won't take that. So the new app is going to have the value declared to pay duties, but the Canada Post accompanying customs form is going to show a different value because they can't be matched due to Canada Post's restrictions on the minimum $1 per item.
Yeah.
So I just encountered that problem today.
Sounds like a lot to wade through.
Well, the Canada Post is already enacted. Like I went to mail a parcel 15 minutes ago and they wouldn't take it because I wasn't on the app yet. But Canada Post hasn't sent out the small business customers the link to download the app, and the application provider won't provide an account until Canada Post does so. But Canada Post has already enacted I won't take it without the code and the duties prepaid as of today.
So, okay, so you're going through the paperwork, you're trying to sort this all out, Alan. What about the impact on your business and the interest from your customers? How do you think that might be affected?
So because our product is a relatively low cost compared to a lot of the other suppliers for trailer companies, the tariff doesn't represent a large increase in cost for us, even though right now it's 35%, or an increased cost for our customers. So most of them are willing to pay that tariff. It's just we have to now pay everything up in advance, and we were already paying for shipping in advance and rebilling our customers the product, obviously, and now here's another item that we have to pay ahead of time and wait for that money to be returned by customers. It could have the impact of, for some of the smaller companies we deal with, just another bite, another additional cost for them to bear. So it could affect our customer base. Right. We don't know yet until you start asking people for an extra $100 on their $700 order. What their reaction is going to be. So it's uncertainty, I think, is the worst part of all of this, and it has been the kind of trademark of all of these tariff dealings with Donald Trump. It's just the uncertainty and the constant change.
I can imagine, and yeah, that theme of uncertainty has come up again and again. And so, for yourself, as you watch, the macro picture, the negotiations happening, what would you want to say to the federal government as they move forward? How do you think they should respond?
Well, the mechanism of response seems to be there seems to be some futility to it, because if you're creating a response to a measured and well thought out program, it's easier to respond to that than it is to respond to what do I feel like today? What will the change be today? It's hard to formulate a cohesive response to something that changes so much. So it's a difficult job for the government for sure. I mean, I would like to see them push back on this to maintain some level of certainty for small businesses that are shipping small product. We're not talking in these scales. Typically under $800 per box, I believe it was. We're not talking about, large, tons of steel or aluminum or automotive parts or, relatively high value. These are low value items. Typically, you mentioned earlier in the show, someone that takes old hockey sticks and makes them into creative items to sell. That is not going to, break the bank of the U.S. It's the small business people, are working on tight margins, employing people in the communities. And every hit that they take is just another small business that has the potential to fail. We've been fortunate so far. We've been kind of riding through this and relatively unscathed, but you don't really know if it's affecting your growth because as you try to get new customers, whether or not they're signing on or not because of the uncertainty.
Yeah, I hear you. Alan, really, really good to hear from you. Thank you for the call.
All right, thanks.
Alan in Victoria. Wow, Ryan, I can see, I've been watching you nodding along as you've been listening to Alan. And he mentioned uncertainty, and so have you in this conversation. And I'm thinking about, okay, so we're in back to school season right now. It's kind of the shopping season. And then you look ahead to, Black Friday and then the holiday shopping season. So when you're thinking about uncertainty, what are you expecting for the coming weeks and months?
It's tough to say what I'm expecting with uncertainty, I suppose. But really, when we talk to our members, what they tell us is that they cannot really continue under the current conditions. We asked small businesses, and they came back and said, under the current state of affairs, they can maybe last another 6 months before they start having to make tough decisions. And that's whether it means laying off staff or closing up altogether. That's the clock is ticking. So really, the countdown is on for provincial and federal governments to provide relief and to provide some of that certainty. We are going to need government action here at some point. As I've mentioned, one of those things is returning counter-tariff revenue to small businesses so they can invest in their operations. The other thing is targeted cost relief for small businesses, whether that's taxes, for example, the small business tax rate. In BC, we have something called the employer health tax, which is, the more you pay your employees, the more employees you have on your payroll, the more taxes you're going to pay into the system. Those are all things that hold back growth and investment, and something we'd like to see addressed over the medium term. It's just an idea of some of the small business friendly measures that we can see that would go a long way to helping operations. But really, something needs to happen, and something needs to happen soon.
Ryan, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. We'll follow the story, of course, as the change kicks in right at midnight tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Ryan Mitton is Director of Legislative Affairs in BC for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. We have an email from Jane who writes, what about putting small businesses in Canada together with shoppers in Canada who don't want to buy U.S.? Could some level of government make an access list or something to support small businesses affected by U.S. tariffs and the de minimis ending? And maybe Canadian consumers can make an extra effort to use money and not spend it in the United States buying Canadian stuff. Thank you, Jane, for your email. bctoday@cbc.ca is our email address once again. And another email now from Maureen. We'll go through that in the next half hour. It's quite a long email, so I'll go through that and read that to you for the next segment as well. This is BC Today, and it is now 12:28. Some emails now that we received from you about Surrey's hybrid learning pilot. So to ease classroom overcrowding this school year, Surrey will introduce optional hybrid classes for students in grades 10 to 12. So that would mix online with in-person classes. Elizabeth wrote us, and she's an elementary school teacher. She writes, we need to make a hard move away from online learning. With AI tools, there is no way to monitor authentic online learning anymore. Learning needs to come back to the classroom and in person. Adam writes, online education environments today fail to meet kids on their own terms. We need to integrate virtual platforms and gamify their learning environments to fully engage them. Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite. We need to leverage the places that kids virtually congregate. Bill writes from Invermere, the demand that we need more schools ignores the fact that we are already living beyond our overall financial means. All the BC social institutions demanding more and more is unaffordable. Perhaps some courses can be produced for all BC students online, equaling less teacher and infrastructure expenses. Anthony writes, as a parent of a high school child who has used such a school setup for schooling here on Vancouver Island, students need to have a high level of technical skills and aptitude. Also, access to expensive tech. What schools have is not sufficient, nor do they have enough. The school districts do not have a well-developed IT structure and staffing to actually support this well. Teachers do their best, but don't necessarily know how to do this well enough. It is not a viable solution. Thanks for your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca. And the email from Maureen regarding the end of the de minimis tariff exemption writes, you asked how this elimination will affect us. Well, my daughter-in-law, who's new to English and a new permanent resident, has been earning her income through a small home business selling crafts through Etsy, mainly to consumers in the States. She's using this income to pay her tuition in an early childhood education program at a university. And her home business enabled her to work when she didn't have very much English, and also allows her to be at home with her new baby. Our son and daughter-in-law and grandbaby live with us, so they will be okay. But I think the effects on many families like ours will be invisible to most people. Maureen, thank you very much for sharing your story. BC Today at cbc.ca. And again, taking your thoughts on the end of the de minimis tariff exemption that kicks in at midnight tonight and that will impact small businesses, as they say. It will have a major effect on them. It is now 12:31. You're with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you this afternoon. And in our next half hour, we're going to talk about education once again and post-secondary institutions who are facing cash crunch, financial crunch due to the lower international student enrollment. And so we're hearing from faculty that they're facing layoffs. We'll talk to them and students as well. Love to hear from you if you're seeing that this coming school year. What does this mean for post-secondary education? Take your calls on that after this CBC News Update with Amelia John.
Good afternoon. A dozen people are recovering from a boat crash in Okanagan Lake. It happened near the Bennett Bridge in Kelowna last night. RCMP say 2 boats were involved. One of them ended on top of the other. Impairment and weather conditions aren't believed to be factors. Mounties say a dump truck driver is facing charges after a crash in Manning Park yesterday that spilled coal into a nearby river. A dump truck jackknifed onto its own trailer on Highway 3, then collided with a car carrying 2 people. RCMP say there were minor injuries and that the spill is being monitored by the BC Environment Ministry. And the province is reminding people about open burning prohibitions and campfire bans in the Coastal, Caribou and Kamloops fire centres ahead of the long weekend. There are now about 80 active fires burning in BC. That's up from 68 yesterday. 17 are listed as out of control, although there are no wildfires of note at this time. Time now for the BC forecast along the north coast today. Mainly sunny, highs up to 19 near the water, 30 degrees inland. In the Peace, sunny with a high of 31. For the central interior, clear skies, highs up to 29. For the southeast corner of the province, chance of showers, risk of thunderstorm, highs up to 29. For the southern interior, chance of showers, risk of thunder as well, highs up to 30. And along the south coast, mainly cloudy, hazy in some parts, highs up to 26. And that is the CBC News from Vancouver.
Sounds like a good day for a trip to the pool.
Oh, heaven.
Yeah,
Heaven.
and some good news for people who use Kit's Pool.
Yes.
It'll be extended till September 7th.
Yes.
Come on.
It's open a week later. My father-in-law was just visiting from Australia and was a big fan. Loved it.
Yeah, who isn't? I know. I'm sure people will be flocking over to Kit's Pool one more week. I was at a park in New Westminster on the weekend where they had an outdoor pool, and boy, was it busy.
I bet.
And I didn't have a chance to go in, but I made a mental note because it looked so inviting.
Well, enjoy it while you can, right? Like we're in the last few days of summer here.
Yeah.
Wrapping up.
Head on over. One more week. Amelia, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
That's Amelia John in the CBC Vancouver newsroom, and lots more of the day's top stories on the afternoon shows in your region on CBC. In Metro Vancouver, here's what's coming up on the coast.
Hi, Michelle. It's Amy sitting in for Gloria Makarenko today here on the coast. And coming up, we are going to speak with someone who recently called our premier a radical for pushing back on calls to approve a new pipeline through our province. Former opposition leader Andrew Scheer will be in North Van for an event called Making Canada Better, a conservative vision. But before that, he's going to stop into the studio and have a chat with me. Also, a new Simon Fraser University course this fall will mark a significant world first. A professor teaching alongside a live, fully expressive 3D AI sidekick. So, is this the future of education? Or the start of a horror novel? We're going to find out more, so I hope you can tune in on the coast starting at 3 o'clock.
Welcome back. You're with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Well, we are heading into a new school year, but faculty and staff at some post-secondary institutions say they are facing more layoffs as colleges and universities grapple with capped international student enrollment. The Kwantlen Polytechnic University Faculty Association says 8 notices have gone out this week, with a total of 45 positions cut. Mark Diot is president of the Faculty Association, and he spoke to CBC this morning.
And so as those students progress through their programs, they don't get to see the reasons why they came there. They don't get their favorite instructor or the most recognized instructor, perhaps. And of course, there's less course options, and so it may be harder for them to graduate. We believe that between faculty layoffs and some of the mitigation factors, such as retirement incentives, the dry up of contract work, and so forth, we estimate somewhere between 10 to 20% of the faculty complement of over 1,000 faculty members may be lost. And that's a generational change. That's a loss of knowledge at the institution, a loss of connections to industry, a loss of connections to the community.
Okay, that was Mark Diot, president of the KPU Faculty Association. Meanwhile, Langara University is also facing cuts. And in a statement to CBC, Langara President Paula Burns said Langara is down 2,400 international students compared to the fall of 2023, and that it had no choice but to reduce total employees. We're asking you this half hour, are layoffs at post-secondary institutions affecting you this year? And how do you feel about the future of post-secondary education? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or dial 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Email is bctoday@cbc.ca. And you can also comment on our TikTok Live. Well, joining me now are Frank Cosco and Cole Reinbold. Frank Cosco is president of the Vancouver Community College Faculty Association, and Cole is the secretary-treasurer of the BC Federation of Students. Good afternoon to you both.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Well, Frank, what are you hearing over at Vancouver Community College?
Well, similarly to Mark, I do the same job Mark does at VCC. We're having our third round of cuts this year. We had a meeting with the college this week, and they said there'll be another 30 faculty who are continuing regular faculty let go, and their jobs will end on January 2nd. Obviously, it has a huge impact on them personally and their families and on the programs that they've been delivering. I got a lot of comments about the causes of that, but I'll yield to Cole for a bit.
Sure, and one of the causes that we have heard about is the lower international student enrollment rate, as caps have been put in place by the federal government. Has there been a kind of uncertainty since those caps were announced among your members?
Yeah, for sure. It's the biggest crisis in post-secondary ever. And this is a real frustration that it hasn't been recognized as such or taken up by academia or the media or politicians. What is going to replace the international student income, which colleges have depended on? The universities, especially research universities, have many other sources of funding. And in some provinces, the internationals weren't as big a factor. But in BC, since Christy Clark and Gordon Campbell government introduced this idea well before the Liberals loosened up their visa requirements, it's become the key factor in post-secondary funding. Some places were over 50% international funding, and they're all through the province. There's a crisis going on right now. Many institutions are relying on their savings that they've had over the years to get by, but it's not sustainable. And where is the government going to turn? To domestic students to increase fees or double fees? There's no way, because internationals were paying like 4 or 5 times more than the domestic students were paying. So it's a huge policy issue As I said, the biggest crisis ever. And we've been calling for 2 years now for a serious Royal Commission level look at the funding and making recommendations, an independent Royal Commission making recommendations to the government about the way forward. It's just
that really strikes
untenable.
me untenable. That strikes me that you say the biggest crisis in post-secondary education. Cole Reinbold, how would you describe the financial crunch that post-secondary institutions are facing right now?
I would start by saying that staff layoffs at BC campuses across the province are simply a downstream effect of government underfunding, as was previously alluded to. And this underfunding has gone on for a generation. And yes, I absolutely agree that that the crisis that we're in right now is the worst that's ever been seen. So post-secondary, as I speak, is buckling and cracking under decades of divestment. So in the early 2000s, post-secondary was funded at 60% by the provincial government, and now it's less than 40. So falling international enrollment didn't cause this crisis that we're in right now. All it did was expose it. And the solution is stable provincial operating funding right now. And to some people listening, this might seem like an abstract budget story, but this is going to show up for you in longer hospital wait times, fewer early childhood educators, and slower home building because we're training fewer people for these jobs.
Can you make that connection a little more clear for us? What will this mean for students, your members, and their careers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for students, what this means on the ground is that they're paying more for their education and they're getting less. So they're getting fewer course options, delayed graduations, 1 year. It typically takes 5 years to complete a bachelor's degree now instead of the advertised 4 because of fewer course offerings. There are shrinking services, so you're going to see less counselors, less advisors on campus, just less supports overall. And every canceled class or suspended intake delays somebody's qualification. And so that means one less nurse in the ER, one fewer apprentice on the building site this year. And so students are really feeling like they're the shock absorbers for government cuts. So at VIU, they've already cut 22 programs, including music and geographic integrated systems. And then they're going to be cutting an additional 10 this year and suspending another 6. So we're doing massive cuts. And so what that does is it pigeonholes people into just completing the same profitable programs for an institution.
I should go through some of the comments that we've received from the institutions themselves. We did reach out to Vancouver Community College, who say that their negotiations with the Faculty Association are still evolving and would not provide specific comments on the details of those out of respect for the process. We also did receive a comment from the Kwantlen Polytechnic University, and they state, unfortunately, the continued international enrollment decline means revenue this year is now projected to be $5 to $10 million lower than forecast in the 2025-26 budget. And KPU must make difficult decisions to decrease expenses. And they have already implemented reductions, including elimination of administrative, faculty, and BCGEU roles. And in the 2025 budget, a $6 million reduction target was set for administration. So this target represents an estimated reduction of about 40 to 45 full-time equivalent positions by the end of March next year. So that coming from KPU. We are following the story for you. It's kind of developing throughout the day. So taking your calls as well. What are you seeing? How are you seeing an impact from layoffs this school year at post-secondary institutions? And what do you think this all means for post-secondary education and its future? Our numbers are 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950, or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email, bctoday@cbc.ca, and lots of comments on our TikTok live. Robin Achima writes, the feds need to inject cash. And Rob writes, it's a self-made crisis. Why not live within their means without the international student cash? Love to hear from you as well. If you have a comment as to what that can be replaced with, as our guest Frank Cosco has said, what's going to replace that international student enrollment? I'll go to you. I'll go back to you, Frank, in just a moment. I just want to go to a caller, if you don't mind, who's been waiting. But I will ask you, what can replace the revenue that was coming from international students? My apologies, but I just want to hear from Morgan in Powell River.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Morgan in Powell River, what are your thoughts? How do you think this affects post-secondary education?
Well, I'm as somebody who went through the post-secondary system, it's scaring me, quite honestly, because of how they were already stressed enough for money in my program I went for. And,
what was that program?
Horticulture. Horticulture in Olds, Alberta.
Okay.
And we were already facing severe budget concerns from all the faculty members, and now that is probably just going to be compounded onto this issue. So programs that I've once been in are now possibly getting defunded even more due to international students, the problem that we're talking about today.
Right. What do you think that means for education?
Well, we got professionals like Frank on the line for that one.
Yeah. And when did you graduate?
Sadly, I'm one course shy away. I'm still going back this year, so I can actually give you an update about my program in 6 months.
Yeah, you can actually. So you're right in it. You're in the thick of it right now then.
I mean, I've been in the thick of it as a student. Yes.
Yeah.
I did want to speak on other things, but I don't want to take any more time.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your sharing that. You're concerned that, you've already seen budget constraints even prior to these caps, and you're concerned about what this could even mean in terms of curtailing finances even further. Morgan, really good to hear from you. Thank you very much for your call. Let's go back now to Frank Cosco, who is the president of the Vancouver Community College Faculty Association. Yes, so that question that you posed earlier, what do we replace that international student revenue with, Frank? What can do that?
I wanted, picking up on a comment Cole made about this has gone on for 20 years. It's no accident that the Liberal government in the 1990s, under Paul Martin and Chrétien, cut transfer payments to the provinces drastically in order to balance their books. And a large part of those transfer payments were used for post-secondary education. Now, Mr. Carney now, 30 years later, wants to revitalize the Canadian economy, make us a leader in the G7. Okay, great. But part of that is training and education of the younger generations and upgrading people who are already in the workforce. So you can't make those investments to upgrade our economy now that we're more of an independent country, thank God, without investing in post-secondary education. And the Liberal government cut it in the 90s. Luckily for Canada, international students made up the slack for the last 20 years, thanks to those families in all those other countries who didn't know they were doing that. And now we need to revisit and get adult about this. Post-secondary is vital now for the economy to make Canada more independent and a leader. And it needs to be invested in. And the federal government can't walk away from that role and just leave it to the provinces. And the provinces can't just leave it to the colleges, which is what they're doing now. Right now, in our immediate calendar months in front of us, the poor colleges can't cope with this, so all they can do is cut left, right, and center.
At the same time, you talk about the federal government, but as you know, they're dealing with trade negotiations, the impact of this trade war with the United States. If you talk about the province, we have record deficits here. I mean, is it really just about increased government funding?
It's not government funding. I don't like to put it in that frame. It's investment in Canada. Are we going to be a leading economy in the world? If we're going to be, that's why I use the verb to adult. We have to act like adults, and that means we have to invest in it. And whichever way that's going to happen, it has to happen. We can't just coast on free trade with the States anymore. We can't coast on international students anymore. So we have to invest in ourselves. And that's what this is. It's like building a bridge across the Fraser River. We have to do it once in a while.
Erica is on the line in South Surrey. Hi, Erica. What's going to be the impact of these layoffs?
They should never have been hired in the first place, quite frankly. I agree with the previous caller that the federal government did the cuts, and that's what caused the problem here. They had to rely on bringing in international students just so that local national students could still have a reasonable cost towards their education. So front and center to me is the federal government needs to step up again and pay and support our education system.
So it's about right. You're saying this is the root of the problem. What do we do now about it, Erica?
Good question. I really don't have a solution other than we need to. The federal government really does need to pony up. I don't see any other way.
Okay. Thank you very much for the call. Good to hear from you in South Surrey. We have an email from Christina, who is in Surrey and an instructor at KPU. Christina writes that yesterday at the arts faculty meeting, we were given some numbers. International students make up only 19% of our students for fall 2025 and told that layoffs will continue incrementally. There will be cuts to programs and faculty mergers, and it sounded as if the university leadership has given up on funding from the province because they are so deep in deficit. There was some talk about saving costs besides layoffs, but there does not seem to be a concerted effort to take advantage of the Trump situations and attract students from the US or Europe. The mood was very somber. And Christina goes on to write, the impact is, of course, the greatest on instructors who are laid off. But for the rest of us, it is not negligible either. We are no longer able to offer our students enough courses to allow them to finish their degree in a timely manner, and this will lead to fewer students enrolling. Christina, thank you very much for that email. bctoday@cbc.ca if you want to email us. Let me go back to Cole Reinbold then. Is it a matter of that, as Frank was saying, federal investment? Are there other ways that these institutions can come up with revenue?
The only solution here is more federal and provincial funding. And I think both of the callers really summarized that really well. The first caller, Morgan, saying that even before all of these cuts for international study permits, they were seeing budget constraints on the ground. And then the second caller saying that the federal government needs to pony up. And I agree, but I would like to add that it's not just the federal government, it's also the provincial government. Yes, the federal government should increase transfer payments to fund post-secondary education, but the root issue is the provincial government not ponying up that 75% of funding needed for the operational budgets. And what I mean by that is 75% of all operating funding for post-secondary institutions ought to be coming from the provincial government, because you have to frame it in the way that funding post-secondary education is about priorities and not to think about it as a cost. It's an engine. Every dollar invested in post-secondary education returns to us tenfold in productivity, healthcare, housing, and growth. And the cost of inaction, if we don't fund post-secondary education, is so much higher than we can even imagine right now. If we continue the path that we're on, underfunding education, we're simply going to be paying more later. And so that means it's going to be longer ER wait times, construction delays, and lost jobs, even more lost jobs across the province.
Some emails now as well. Scott writes, administrative costs at many institutions seem high, which may affect student value. The increase in unaccredited institutions is also concerning as it can compromise educational quality and recognition. Let me jump off of that with you, Frank. So as I listen, I think what role does, a private institution play here then? Are they filling the gap? And are you concerned about perhaps what Scott is raising there when it comes to compromising educational quality? Are we going to rely more on private institutions?
Well, private institutions have to charge huge tuitions to survive, and they've flourished in BC because
Yeah.
of a favorable climate, because of international students too. So
Right.
they've suffered greatly because of the loss. So I don't know who will survive this next year or so in the private sector, but that's not the way Canada should be looking at its essential education, is trying to privatize it further than it already has been. It should be investments in the public sector, the way Cole was saying. She's absolutely right on. I did an analysis once, and if you adjust for inflation, the province is still funding post-secondary in 2025 the way Ujjal Dosanjh did in the year 2000. It hasn't increased. We've been running on international tuition for 25 years now. So it's time for a rethink of this. And she's right. There should be a higher priority on the province. And the federals need to pony up, the way I said before. So, and I think industry and those who directly gain from post-secondary education, because they don't have to have a training budget, should pony up in taxes as well. I'm sure that'll be popular, but that's what they should be doing. It's a responsible thing to do. They should have more partnerships between industry and post-secondary and the government as well.
That's a very interesting proposition, and I wonder, that can stir up some discussion for sure. As we wrap up here, Frank, I guess as a person who is faculty, who's president of the association, how are you feeling personally?
I'm feeling sick. I'm so tired of talking to people who are going to lose their livelihood. Can you imagine living in the Lower Mainland and losing your livelihood after you invested more than 10 years getting the education to be able to get the job? And you're doing good. You've done good work for 10 years, say, and you're looking forward to the next 10 years, and boom, you're gonzo. It makes you sick.
A stressful
and then
time.
you've got all the students who are losing. We've lost a great program at Fraser and Broadway for helping youth who can't succeed in high school take their high school in a more adult setting. We've had to cut that. It's sickening.
I really want to thank you for your time. Stressful times for your members. Thank you very much. That's Frank Cosco, is president of the Vancouver Community College Faculty Association. Cole Reinbold is with the BC Federation of Students.